Okay, folks, we'll go ahead and get started. Start off with a couple of introductions real quick. First of all, my name is Ken Steiger. I'm the fire chief here in St. Genevieve, and I'm here representing the Friends of St. Genevieve Fire District. We'll introduce you a few more people. We have Joan Hook, who's a potential board member, Scott Drury, a potential board member, and walking in the back room is Jeff Weiler, another potential board member. Part of our committee that has been discussing this, I have Joe Steiger, one of the city aldermen, and Felix Meyer, assistant fire chief. We also have the privilege of having the mayor from St. Genevieve here tonight too. So what we'd like to do tonight is just talk about the fire district and how it came about, try to bring this up to a vote and let you know some information about it. Let you know that the idea of becoming a fire district isn't new to St. Genevieve. We've been talking about it off and on for the last 25 to 30 years with different administrations in the city. Every time we need a fire truck or needed a building or whatever we needed, the city was always able to come up with the funding. But in recent years, they've not been able to do much more than maintain us. So we're in a situation where the only way we can make sure things survive is to go out and find a secure funding source. The movement of a fire district at this point in time started with myself and a couple of fire chiefs out in the county that were discussing how to make the fire service survive in St. Genevieve County. And initially, all 7 departments in the county were going to combine and work together and become one district countywide. But in doing our research on it and meeting with different people, we found out that the ISO, the Insurance Service Office that does audits on fire departments and tells you about how your rating is done, and that's what insurances use to set your rating. We talked to them, and with St. Genevieve City, we are currently at ISO Class 4. If we were to join the county, some of the lower ratings in the county would be drawing us down from our Class 4 to potentially a Class 6, which is what they're telling the county they would have if everybody joined together in Class 6. And when we talk to the insurance companies here in town, they tell us that a movement from a Class 4 to a 5 would be potentially a 10% increase in your homeowner's insurance. If you move from a 4 to a 6, which what would happen if we joined the county proposition, we would have potentially a 17% increase in your homeowner's insurance. So that's the reason why we're not participating in the countywide fire district. We are working together closely with them. We do have a member of the county committee here tonight. We meet with them on a regular basis. We do a lot of presentations together because it's basically the same issue. Everybody's hurting for money. We are fortunate here in the city because we do have a budget, but everybody's hurting and needs to find a secure way to finance our departments. So the Insurance Service Office, I talked about that a little bit. That's an independent third-party evaluation company. And what they do is they come in and audit your fire department, see what your capabilities of your department is, also see what the capabilities of your local water source, if you have one, is, and also your 911 dispatch. We're fortunate here, we have a pretty good fire department. We also have hydrants in the city, so we are a Class 4 in the city. Some of the outlying departments aren't so fortunate. The main benefit of the fire district would be a guaranteed funding source. With the fact that we are a city department, every year we have a budget session, and I have to go in the city budget session as the department head and ask the city for money to fund our department. Every year I'm in competition with different departments in the city police, water department, sewer department, all those things. So every year we have to try to figure out how to get some money out of them. And they've been doing good with us and they got us maintained. But there's some major expenses coming up in the not too distant future, and the city, quite honestly, just doesn't have the funding source to get that accomplished. Every year during the budget session, I'm allowed to request several capital expenditures. Basically what a capital expenditure is things over and above my regular budget. If I want to do, like a few years ago we painted the firehouse. Every year I ask for equipment to change our turnout gear, the coats and helmets and boots and things we wear. And we try to do that every so many years because that has a life expectancy of only about 10 years. And I'm able to get that accomplished. This last year I asked for about $70,000 for building and parking lot repairs, and it was not funded because the city just didn't have the money. The only thing I was able to get out of them this year was $13,000 to maintain our equipment for turnout gear for the guys to keep them safe. So the city is getting by and they're maintaining us, but we really need to come up with a secure funding source. In the last 10 years, we've been able to do a lot of purchasing of equipment But that's because in the last 10 years, we've received almost $750,000 worth of grant money that we bought equipment with. And with the city's funding, if we wouldn't have gotten those grants, a lot of that updates wouldn't have happened, which would have put us even further behind than what we are now. Last fall, I came to the city council at one of my meetings and let them know that one of the major expenses we have coming up right now is we need a fire truck. And to their credit, whenever I explained how much it was going to be, they gave us the blessing to attempt a fire district. So we do have the city's blessing on this. If the fire district fails, the city is going to have to come up with a way to pay for a fire truck. And when I started talking to them last year in October, the new fire truck was going to be $1,063,000. After the first year with steel prices and aluminum prices going up, that truck went up to $1.2 million. And then we found out that the engines are made by Cummins, and the only one that can make it is Cummins, and they are changing their emission system to 48-volt system, which means that's going to be another $88,000 to $100,000 for cost of a truck. So that truck is now $1.3 million. There's no way the city can afford that. If they have to do that, they're going to have to finance $1.4 million truck over a 10-year period. What do you think the interest payment is going to be for something like that? So this is a way to take it out of the city's hands and have it financed by a secure funding source, and the money for the fire district can only be used for fire district expenses. Some of the challenges we faced in the last few years, increasing call load. I went back in history and looked. In 1990, we ran a total of 51 calls. In 2023, the last number that we had for the calls we ran was 274 calls. We had a 407% increase in number of calls that we've run in the last 30 years. And people may ask why that is. Back in 1990, all we did was put fires out. Now, look at what the fire departments are expected to do. We not only do fires, but we do extrications, we do car wrecks, we do EMS assist. Just the other day, we got a call that the ambulance was coming from Bloomsdale, and we had a shortness of breath call in town, so we went and took care of them until the ambulance could get there. We do specialty rescues. In the last 2 years, we've done several animal rescues, and we actually got a guy out of a grain bin down in the south end of our coverage area. So the types of calls that we go on is ever expanding, and that's the expectations nationwide of the fire service. Basically, the fire departments nationwide have become the one that they call when they're not sure who else to call. And a lot of that has to do, especially with us being volunteer, we have regular jobs. So a lot of guys have specialties that come into play whenever we do specialty rescue. Some guys know electric, some guys know mechanical, so that's all plays into what we do. Another big part of our situation is fire alarms. As the buildings and the community grows a little bit, we have automatic fire alarms that go off. And an automatic fire alarm goes off no matter what time of day or night it is. We have to go until we can confirm that it's a false alarm. So that is a big part of where our calls are, is EMS assist, all the specialty stuff that we have to do now, hazardous materials, and fire alarms. Another thing we have issues with is manpower. In 1990, we had a waiting list. You applied and you were put on a waiting list, and then we called you if we had an opening. As of today, I put a new guy on the other day. I still have 3 open spots that I could put people on today if I had any applications, but I don't have the applications. So manpower is a big issue for us, trying to find people to go out and fight fires. And it is a big commitment. A lot of the calls we get aren't during normal business hours, 8 o'clock till 4. We've had a couple calls in the last couple of days that have been 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, so people have to get up and go to those calls. Another one of our issues that we have is aging equipment. We do a real good job. I have a maintenance crew, as a matter of fact, they're working tonight, and we sometimes are our own worst enemy because we keep our equipment looking so good, we keep it clean, we keep it maintained. A lot of people don't realize how old the stuff is. When you look at all the equipment we have down there truck-wise, the average age of our trucks are 19 years old. We have a regulatory committee called the National Fire Protection Association, and they tell us how old trucks and how old equipment should be before it gets used. The NFPA tells us that a frontline truck should be used for 15 years, then put in reserve status or backup status for 5, and at the end of 20 years, it should be decommissioned and taken out of service. Right now, my first out pumper is a 2006, so it's 19 years old. And a couple of months ago, that truck went out of service for 48 hours because of an air brake issue. The backup truck, that's a 1993, so a 32-year-old truck. how many of you here want to rely on a 32-year-old truck as your primary response vehicle to a house fire or somebody trapped or hurt? So we talk about the age of our trucks, so we definitely need to do that. We also have another thing that we got back in 2015. We had a grant for a countywide, replaced our SCBA's. In 2015, we spent $300,000, bought all new air packs and compressors and everything to outfit the guys. NFPA tells us those should only be used for 15 years. We bought them in 2015, so in 2030, they have to be replaced. In 2015, they were $300,000. We anticipate by 30, it's going to be $500,000. So if you add the cost of a truck at $1.3, $1.4 million and those air packs at 500, you're looking at $2 million the city has to come up with in the next 7 years. And I could ask either one of the city people there, is that something that's going to be easy to do? No, it's not. So this is a way to get secure funding and be able to make the repairs and the things that we need to do in the near future. Ever increasing cost is a big part of what we do. The budget in 1990, we talked about how many calls we had. My budget in 1990 was $47,000. In 2023, it was about $200,000. Seems like a lot of money, and it is. But when you look at the amount of budget we have compared to the number of calls, a while ago I told you we had a 407% increase in call load. We only had a 300% increase in our budget. So if you look at budget versus calls, we are actually 100% behind on how much money we should be operating off of, according to the growth of the community. And just to give you an idea of some of the costs involved, in 1973, we passed a $100,000 bond issue in the city, and city residents have always been good about that. We passed a $100,000 bond issue. We bought the property for the old station on Main Street. We built the station. We bought a pumper truck. We bought an equipment van. We bought 24 helmets, 24 boots, 24 coats, and 24 pagers, all for $100,000. In 1992, we passed a $200,000 bond issue, and we bought a truck. And we had to use $60,000 from our rural fire fund for selling rural fire tags to equip the truck. And in 2007, we bought a rescue truck. That rescue truck, all the funding for that came out of the rural fire fund. So we took X amount of dollars out every year and did a 10-year lease purchase on that. So we bought that without having to come to the city and asking for more money. We used our rural fire fund. In 2018, the city used some surplus funding that they had from the levy, and they bought us a ladder truck because we needed it. The reason we needed that was because we had a telesquirt, which is our version of a ladder at that point, and it went out of service. It no longer passed its inspection. So we lost our class 4 we had and dropped to a class 5. Which means the people at that time got a 10% increase in their homeowners. So in 2018, the city allowed us to buy a fire truck, a ladder truck, and that ladder truck was $729,000. So you can see between 1973 and 2018 how much things have gone up. I recently did some checking on insurance rates because I want to make sure that if we have something happen, the vehicles can get replaced. And talking to them about our ladder truck, it's only 5 years old, but they won't put full coverage on anything over 5 years old. So if that truck would get totaled today, they would give me about half of the value. So I'd get $700,000 for that truck, and the next truck would be $2 million for a ladder truck. So the cost of trucks have just skyrocketed. And that's a big part of the reason why we need to come up with a fire district. We talked about the cost of the new truck. So what we've also done here is I've got some handouts here that everyone can look at. I've got a copy here of what we currently operate in the red, talking about how we do things, and in the green, what would be the benefit of having a fire district. The copy on the right side, your right side, is how much this will actually cost. And then the city, if you haven't seen our post on Facebook lately, the city has agreed to roll back the city taxes in the amount of my current budget. So my budget rolls into this thing, and we're asking for 30 cents per $100 assessed valuation. And the city has agreed to roll back my budget, which amounts to about 18 cents. So for the city residents, we're only asking actually for a 12-cent increase over what you're currently paying. And that will get you a guaranteed fire protection with a fire district. Any questions to this point? Any of the board members have anything they want to say?
No, I can verify. Districts have been a discussion for a long time. I remember 10 years ago talking about it, and I know county departments have talked about joining in the past and taking care of things. It's just, I've been fortunate in my life to have been able to leave my job if something happened, but not everybody's like that anymore. And so you're looking at difficulty on getting volunteers like he was talking about, but the cost of everything, as everybody knows, is going up. And so this has been something that has been in discussion for a long time, and it's something that it's not being taken lightly. There's a lot of thought and a lot of work that goes into it, and we're very open. If anybody's got questions or concerns or opinions, I mean that's why it's out here. That's why we're voting on it, to give the people a chance to speak about it.
Can you explain the rural fire tags?
The rural fire tags, good point, thank you. For those that live outside the city limits, we do sell rural fire tags, and basically what that is a subscription fee that you pay to the city for the city fire department to come out and put fires out at your house. Right now, that's a $100 fire tag for a residential outside the city limits. Unless you're within reach of the city water system, then it's double that. So if you live within 1,500 foot of a city water hydrant, you pay $200 for a house. It also breaks down into commercial and farms and everything else. One of the benefits of the fire district is everybody will be paying their fair share according to what they own, what they own, and the risk that they have. So some of the major manufacturers outside the city that have gotten by for years, just paying $1,000 or so on fire tags, will actually be paying their share of what their assessed risk is. So up until this point, the money has been collected every year, turned to the city, they put it in a real fire fund. We use that for reserve for major unexpected expenses, or at that one point we bought a fire truck out of it over a 10-year period. So fire tags are out there, yeah.
How far do you go out of the city?
We cover a total of 48 square miles. To the north, we go to Molasses Hollow Road. To 32, we go out to where Ekenfelsis Fields are, just short of Joggers Road.
Okay.
And then out M Road, we go to the top of what they used to call Pete Apps Hill, about Sportsman's Drive and Ice Bottom. And then to the south on 61, we go to the First Bridge. And that is our primary response time, our response area. We also do mutual aid with any other department that asks. It no longer is one of those Lone Ranger things where we can handle everything ourselves. If we have a fire in the city, you're going to get the St. Genevieve Fire Department, and you're also going to get Zell and St. Mary's coming to help us. If it's a commercial building, we add Ozora to it. And likewise, we do the same for them. So we go out and help them if they have a house fire too. So we're basically, everybody in the county basically goes on everything. So we're working together to put things out as quickly as we can and be safe as we can, because nobody has enough manpower to do it by themselves anymore.
So like Ozora and Weingarten come up to meet you at whichever you need, really.
Yeah.
You don't say this is the only road
Yeah. To the south we border with St. Mary's. To the west is Ozora, and actually to our west on 32 is Zell before Weingarten, and then to the north is Zell.
Okay.
And then actually, if you go up along the river, we actually border with Bloomsdale along the back of Magnolia Hollow State Campground, or Magnolia State Grounds.
So the rural fire tags will go away.
Yes, rural fire tags would go away, because you'd be paying a tax, you would no longer have to pay a fire tag.
And
So
the city ultimately sets the price of the rural fire tags. The
yes,
city board.
City Council is the one that set the price for the fire tags.
And if the district passes, then the city will have no say-so in it. That will be voted on. For anything that happens with that will be voted on by the residents of the district.
Yeah, if the district goes through, you no longer have to deal with the city at all. It gets collected at the tax, just like any other tax, the ambulance district tax, the hospital tax. It all goes to the county, and they give it to the fire district. It can all be used for fire district benefits. The board members that you see here, the three, will have ultimate say on what happens with the finances. Hopefully I will be the chief of it, and I will make recommendations to them on how things I think should operate, but they get the final say on yes, we spend it, yes or no, we don't. They have final say on operations, how things should go. But they have final say, and they are your voice as the public. You can come to them and talk to them. There will be open meetings, just similar to what a city council has, where the board will meet with the chief and other operations, and you can come voice your opinion and tell them what you think, or contact them other times and they can bring it to a meeting too. And they have the authority to set the tax rate. So we come in at 30 cents. If they find out that we are over what we need to have, they can and have the authority to roll it back. They can never exceed the 30 cents we bring it in at, but they can roll it back if they need to. If it has to go over 30 cents, it has to be brought back to the voters and they have to vote approval to bring it up. With the budget at 30 cents, my budget should go from about $200,000 a year to about 5.5. And what my goal would be for the district is take 200,000 of that right off the top and put it into a vehicle replacement program. That way, money's being set aside to buy that truck when we need it and things. So right off the bat, let's start working on getting things replaced. Part of the budget, every year I go to the city council and I've asked them to put money aside, because in 2012 we tried for vehicle replacement tax and it failed. So we told the city you need to be putting money aside every year for vehicle replacement. So every year I remind them, and they said they put money aside, and I asked them when we were having the meetings how much we had set aside for the purchase of the next truck, and they told me we had $120,000 set aside for a $1.4 million truck. So there's no way that the city can do that. We need to get a more secure financing way to handle our needs and keep up with it. The bottom line is if it doesn't pass, we're going to make do with what we got and ask the city to help as much as they can. But bottom line is your insurance rates could go up if we lose our rating. So it's one of those things, I hate to say it that way, but pay me now or pay me later. And in talking to the insurance people, if your insurance rate goes up, you're going to pay a higher premium. Where does that money go? It goes to some suit sitting at a desk in another town somewhere else. So you're better off investing your money in the local area fire departments and keeping things local here. Spend the money here where it's going to help you instead of be sent off somewhere else.
One more on your fire tags. It goes to the city limits, outside city limits fire tags.
Right.
What happens to that if the taxes go?
The fire tax go away. Everybody will pay a tax of 30 cents per $100 assessed valuation. So there will be no fire tags outside the city limits. You were automatically covered by the tax.
Who's going to cover those people that you cover now then?
We will. We will maintain our same borders.
Okay.
We would just extend, well, we're not really extending. We're just going from a municipal department that covers rural area with a fire tag to a district that everybody's covered at the same rate. And another benefit of that is a lot of people don't pay their fire tags. So if they don't pay their fire tags, we're going to put the fire out because it's the right thing to do and we don't want anybody to get hurt. But if they don't pay their fire tags, then you're paying for somebody else to have protection. So this is the way that everybody pays their share. Good questions. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Yeah, you know, I've got that property out at Minute. We were there a couple years ago with the fire out there. I pay a Wolf Creek tax for our property on the backside where ours is. So if the situation would happen, we would have a fire out there. Do they call Wolf Creek or do they call you?
If it's on your property, it comes into a 911 center and they have a CAD system, a computer system that tells who the property owner is and which fire coverage area it is. If it's a structure fire, you're going to get Wolf Creek if they're the ones that are ones you pay tax to currently. But you're also going to get assistance from this county too, because we help everybody, even if we cross the county lines.
Okay.
And you will not have to pay for multiples either. So whoever you pay your fire tag to, whether it's Ozora, Zell, St. John, whoever, that is where you'll get your fire coverage.
It's a unique situation because I've got the old cabin that's on your side.
Yeah.
And then the other one is on Wolf Creek side. So, and then there's no good way to get from Wolf Creek to my place.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard to get from here. You know that.
One of the things that has to be done for this to operate, and we got it done with the city and the county did it shortly after that, is you have to have legal description of your boundaries. So it tells you property by property, who owns what and who's responsible for it. So I know of several properties that are like that have one coverage on one part and another covering the other part. One thing we do need to clarify, make sure everybody understands, is there is two separate districts. So the St. Genevieve district is what we're going to talk about tonight, and that will cover St. Genevieve City in our immediate coverage area. The other 7 departments will join together, the other 6 I should say, will join together, and there'll be one separate, one agency together. and that will be St. Genevieve County. So that would be Ozora, would be part of what you're doing there too, but it would be one big countywide.
Okay.
Aside from Wolf Creek and.
Yeah, Wolf Creek has their own fire district, and if you followed us any at all, there is also another fire district that is coming up for vote on the northwest corner. That's called the Big River Fire Protection District. That's out of Bonne Terre, and they're doing the same thing. So they will cover the far west end of the county, and then what is currently covered by Ozora, Zell, Bloomsdale, Kinsey, St. Mary will continue to be covered by them.
Who covers that area now?
The Big Rivers area, that's covered by Big River Fire. They're a fire association similar to our rural fire departments are.
District.
And they do a fire tag system too, and they're trying to get away from the fire tags and go to a fire district also.
A little bit about the history on Wolf Creek. Did they also not just switch in the very last 20?
Wolf Creek started working on it in 2020, and they just got their fire district through and approved by the county voters in 2022. They are part of both St. Francis and St. Genevieve County because of their legal description of where their border is. So they do cover part of St. Genevieve County, but they are based out of St. Francis County. Part of the thing that they're going to do with their money is they're also going to add a couple additional stations. So they will be putting a station down. They actually have the Kaufman area down by the wineries, so they'll be building a station down there. Is one of their things they're doing.
So they already have the 30 cents on the $100 assessed?
Yes, they voted in 2022.
But it's on the ballot. Is that to get the board members in? Is that what it's on?
If you have Wolf Creek,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Board members, whenever they come in as part of the election, the 3 board members we have will show up with their names, and you vote for who you think, whatever. And the person with the highest number becomes a 6-year term, and then the second will get a 4-year term, and the least number of votes will get a 2-year term. And at the end of the first 2 years, that position comes open for an election again, and then it's a 6-year term after that. Every 2 years, you'll have another person that'll be coming up with a 6-year term to be balloted on, or to be voted on, I should say. So if you have some numbers there, they probably list who's the incumbent and who else is running for it, and you just vote for it. With the brought in for the first time, their names have to be part of the petition to get on the vote, so there's really no write-ins or any other alternates in the first election. But in 2 years, the first position will come open for election. Other questions?
Are the residents of the Wolf Creek district satisfied with the way it went?
Yeah, they were overwhelming. They ended up, I think, with an 80-something% whenever they got voted in. And they're happy with it. And one of the benefits they have too is they are able to give their people a little bit of call pay now, because everybody was volunteer before. They gave them a few dollars for making calls down then too, which helps with recruitment and retention of people. If you can pay them a little something for their time and effort, or help reimburse for gas or whatever, that helps keep people around too. They're real happy with it. As a matter of fact, about 8 years ago was the first fire district that got signed up in St. Francis County. It started out with Leadwood. They were the first fire district because their city had nothing in it, and they were trying to find a way to get secure funding. So they became a fire district. Then Bismarck, Missouri got a fire district. Doe Run, Wolf Creek has one, and Bonne Terre, which is Big River, is trying this time, and Terre de Lac subdivision is trying for one this year too. It's the only way that you can secure funding anymore nowadays.
A little bit critical on it, but isn't this funding the fire department, the city council's job?
If they have the tax money to do it. And do you guys want to address that at all?
Yeah, sure. So just to clarify, I mean, the city is not kicking the fire department out of our budgetary, I guess, our framework. It really was never part of our framework. To begin with, right, we talked about in the 70s it was formed, and you know, there were referendums passed, but city we didn't push them out. That wasn't the idea here, but running a city is a business, albeit not a very profitable one, right? And really it's dollars in and it's dollars out. So it's money comes in, it's allocated to certain buckets based on what we've decided, what's been voted on by the people. Right now, there's no funding mechanism for this fire department. It's a standalone department that is solely funded by the city's general revenue, meaning it doesn't have a dedicated line item for anything. They have a rural fire fund from the collection of fire tags, but right now the city has no funding mechanism for that. We have a funding mechanism for you know, if you look at your tax bill, you have ambulance, you have police, you have transportation, you have, you know, we have different coffers that we're putting money into, but those are all funded as part of a mechanism. There isn't one right now. So in discussions with Chief, and this has been ongoing, I think, I remember meeting with you at the firehouse not long after I took office, and we were trying to figure out what to do, because the purchase of this fire truck had been looming, and as Chief said, it's long overdue. And the only solution we can come up with is to create a funding mechanism for this fire department. The call volume is increased to a point where for them to go fight a fire right now, it's going to cost the department far more to fight that fire than it's costing anybody to fund the department to fight it for them. So it's a tenable situation right now. And the only solution we can come up with, well, is it time to really push this out to the voters to see if it's something that we can make happen, so that the chief can finally have a budget that would allow him to do some things that we haven't been able to do in the past, which is, one, to stay ahead of our equipment needs, our truck needs. I mean, I trust Chief here to handle a budget like I would trust anybody else. He's managed to operate that department on a shoestring budget for the better part of, I don't know how many years, Chief, you can fill in that blank for me. But to be able to fund that department on the budget that he's been given to this point, which we're talking somewhere in the neighborhood of 180 to 220,000, just given, you know, depending on the year, that's a Herculean feat to do that with the cost of what it's just turnout gear, just radios, the amount of grants. You mentioned $750,000 in grants. We don't know if that's something that's going to continue into the future, right? I mean, grants could go away next year for all we know. As you know, the Missouri, their legislature changes over. That could be something that comes on the chopping block in the future. We're not sure, but I think at this point, about the only thing that we can come up with is to create a dedicated funding mechanism. And we understand that it's a burden on the residents, a burden on the taxpayer. We don't take that lightly. That's why the council decided that it was prudent for us to give something back to the residents, to the people that this district represents. So rolling back that tax, or excuse me, not a tax, but rolling back the amount that was in the city budget to offset that, we felt like that was a win for the people, so that way it wasn't so overwhelming. That when your tax bill does come, you know, it won't be, you know, it'll be sometime in the future, right? But when it does come, that hit's going to be a little bit softened. That's the hope, at least.
Who does the board answer to, the city then?
The board is
Are
they will not answer to the city.
They are going to be a separate entity?
This will be a separate governmental agency with authority to set the laws, ordinances, regulations, just similar to what a board, alderman does.
School board, ambulance board.
Yeah.
Any of those.
They're an independent political agency on their own, so they will no longer, we won't answer to the city anymore. We'll work with them on a lot of things, because we interchange with a lot of stuff now, but they will be their own governing board.
Well, in the next 5 years, then we're not going to end up and have a water and sewer department for tax too, right?
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you repeat that?
I'm getting information, I'm being critical about it, but is there going to be a water and sewer tax, a district for just that in town too?
No. No, I understand where you're going, because it does feel like there's a lot on the ballot right now that is trying to create its own funding mechanism.
Water and sewer, city, the streets?
Right. Well, but you have to remember, so you know, the city has allocations for each of that. So that money that's coming in already, we have dedicated money for streets, for water, etc. And once again, the city's not in the business of making money. Turning a profit for the city is not something we're after. We just are here to provide the services to the residents that they need and want. And the cost for that, unfortunately, is just ever increasing. And in the fire department's case, it's kind of hitting us from all angles, because that increase in call volume has really eaten into that budget substantially. And you talk about running those trucks, and not to mention, I mean, we've got guys here that are risking their lives. They're taking time out of their schedules. They're taking time away from their families for next to nothing to help our residents. And we're hoping that this would allow them be compensated a little better as well. So there's a lot of give and take to this.
Is there any recent legal sense because that you have to go to more calls?
Well, she might be able to answer that a little better. I know that they're called out on, like he mentioned, that a lot of times it's, well, we don't know if this is a police call, if this is an EMS call. We'll let the fire department decide, right? Or we're going to call them first. We know that we can get them out first. But but Chief may be able to answer if there was some kind of legislation that came down that says, okay, fire department does need to be called out on these types of calls when they maybe weren't before.
There's no legislation. It's basically just the public expectation nationwide.
Okay.
If you watch any of the TV programs now that have fire departments on them, you see them going on all kinds of stuff. Some of it's ridiculous, but in days gone by, you would look at just a fire. And now with other things, we used to tell people no on animal rescues. But if you really look at it, and that person tries to crawl up and get a cat out of a tree, they fall down and break their arm, and we could have done it with a ladder and saved them getting hurt. It's doing a service to the public, and that's what the fire department's all about, is service in the public. Sometimes some of the things we get called for make us kind of scratch our head and wonder why, but we don't question it because they're the ones that are paying to keep the fire department operational. So whatever people need is what we're going to do to make things safe for them. Matter of fact, we had a call just a few minutes ago for a wires call because of the storm. We get there and it was a communication line, it was in the road, so we clipped the wire, made it safe, and as I'm going back to the truck, the neighbor says he only had a little problem. Look at my backyard, and there was a tree on his house.
Okay.
And we, because we were only called for electric wires, could have left. But we decided to stay there and help him clean some of that tree out to make it accessible for him to get in and out of his driveway so he can go to work. So some of it is expectation, some of it's just the right thing to do. So we do what we can to help people out. But no, there's no legal expectations that says anything other than you need to do the right thing. There is legal precedent that if we go to a call and you haven't bought your fire tag, that we can charge you. And there's a legal amount there that's $500 per truck per hour, and then it's so much additional for manpower and everything else. So if you don't have a fire tag, we can legally charge you. But the right thing to do is go out and put out the fire so nobody gets hurt and try to save people's property or whatever.
If they don't have a fire tag?
If they don't have a fire tag, legally we don't have to respond.
Yeah.
But we are going to because it's the right thing to do.
What's the charge then?
$500 per truck for the first hour, and then additional charges per hour after that.
That's for any fire?
But in the rural area, we can charge that, yes.
Yeah.
Only
But-
fire tag.
Yeah, only if we find fire. And if you don't have a fire tag, we can charge you for the fire tag that you didn't buy. We can charge you initiation fee, which is additional fire tag on top of that. And the amount varies on how long time we spend there.
One other item I'll add, we've talked about this too, because you mentioned Wolf Creek, we've mentioned some other areas. This is becoming a normal thing for a lot of our peers are doing this as well. Perryville
Perryville is actually watching to see how ours go, and they've already contacted me.
They're already
If it works, they want me to help them get things started for them too, because they see the need to. Perryville has one department, believe it or not, the manpower for one department running two agencies. Not only the city department, they have a separate rural department. So they're trying to figure out how to make it funding, because Perryville's in the same boat we are. They've got a little bit more industry there, a little bit more tax base, but they still, because they have more tax base, but they have more industry causes more calls. I've been keeping a Facebook page going, and one of the things that came up on the Facebook page was, hey, we got this new subdivision coming in, and that's going to bring more tax money to the city. Yes, there's going to be some residents there, and you get a little bit more tax money, but that extra 150 homes means that extra 150 homes that we may have to respond to too, and more people to cover. So just because we expand doesn't necessarily mean we're going to have more money to operate with.
Thanks for your
Yeah.
comment.
I think it's important to point out, and maybe he did, but just, we're hoping that the county passes, and we're hoping that the city passes. But if there's a potential that if only county voters go out and vote yes and city people don't, it's not an all for one. The county could pass and the city could fail. if the city residents don't go out and vote for it. So don't assume that the county could carry the vote. It doesn't work that way. It's broken, so. just make
Pardon me
sure.
on that, is that, if one does and the other doesn't, what?
Then, there's a potential that could happen. So,
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll speak up. I'm a little bit louder than she is. There is 2 separate districts that will be voted on within St. Genevieve County besides the one on the far west county. There is potential that St. Genevieve Fire District could be voted down and the county passes. If that happens, the county will make a 6-unit department and they'll do what they can, and the city will remain under city control, and we'll just keep making do with what we have. And vice versa, if the city passes and the county doesn't, then the county's going to be struggling, each individual department trying to make it on their own.
Okay.
And right now, to be honest, there's 2 departments in this county that in the next 3 years may be folding because they don't have the funding to operate. And that's part of the reason why we started talking about the fire district and the whole part of it. There's one department in this county right now that operates that collects about $30,000 in fire tax. That's all their income. And they spent $15,000 in insurance this year alone. So they have $15,000 to run their agency the rest of the year.
Yeah,
So there's no way that they can survive like that.
no.
And if they fold, somebody's gonna have to pick them up to help cover that area. So who's gonna cover that? So that's another thing. So there could be potential more of a draw on other people too. Any other questions? And yeah, Joe.
I just have a comment. Joe Steiger on City Council. We hired a full-time or a part-time paid position at the city fire department now. The amount of grants over that last $750,000 in the last few years, if we wouldn't have got some of that funding, some of these purchases couldn't have been made. And so having someone in there writing grants has been really important. Will they keep going? We don't know. The new administration with Doge, are those grants still going to be out there? We don't know that. So we need another source of funding for this opportunity to get this fire district started. As the city, our bonding capacity is almost maxed out. So when you come to us, this fire department begs us for a $1.4 million truck and $500,000 turnout gear. It's going to be really tough for us to figure out a way to get a bond for that or do a lease finance thing that's going to cost us a lot of money in interest. Also, with the fight to keep that ISO, one of the main key points that we're looking at in the city is to develop housing here in St. Gen and St. Gen City exclusively. We are close to signing a contract for 154 homes. And so that is going to tax our fire department. That developer thinks they're going to build those 154 homes within 5 years. So if you start adding 10% capacity population to the city, that's just that much bigger burden that you're going to be putting on the fire department, wearing out their equipment, wearing out their buildings, and not having enough manpower. On top of that, if that subdivision does get built, to keep our ISO 4, the city's going to need some additional funds to upgrade our dispatch, maybe pay for more dispatch, or the water and sewer department, which is a big part of that ISO rating. So if we want to keep that ISO 4, which most homeowners would want to, the city's going to have to work really hard to make sure our water department is up to speed so that we can keep that ISO 4 classification. So just some points that are really taxing the city, and why, as a city council person, I fully endorse this, and I'm going to vote yes on this fire district for the city.
Talking about grants, one of the things that I am part of now too is I'm also on the Regional Homeland Security Oversight Committee, which meets quarterly, and we oversee grants. And that's actually the committee. Before I joined the committee, that's where I got $157,000 worth of radio grants to upgrade all our radios to bring them up to speed. Oh, yeah. And we had a meeting the other day, and they told us with the federal government going on the way it is, right now there is no money there for grants anymore. They're going to wait and hope that something comes down. But even that small section, which is only usually about $200,000 a year for some local stuff, we've already been told that's probably not going to happen. We're hoping, but probably not going to happen. So if it's hoping and not happening on a $200,000 level, you can only imagine that any additional grants are going to probably be drying up too, or be very, very hard to get. Anything else? Basically, what it comes down to is what can you do to help us? Obviously, the first thing is vote yes, because we need your support. If you agree that this is a worthwhile cause, spread the word and tell other people what you think. And hopefully we can get this thing through and we can become the best department we can and have a secure funding source in the future. So, if nobody else has anything, I'd like to sum it up by saying thank you for taking the time. I know it's a bad weather night, but this is the last chance we had to get out and talk to people before. If you have any questions, we do have a Friends of St. Genevieve Facebook page. There's an email address on that directly emails me and I can answer any questions. Last night I had 3 or 4 instant messengers that I answered some questions and people were happy with the answers. So if you have any more questions, reach out to us. We'll try to get them answered for you. And thank you for your time.